Hey there everybody, it's Mark Curley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be drawing backgrounds. To begin with, I'm going to show you some panels from my graphic novel series, Brody's Ghost. Those of you who have been watching my videos for a long time, you will have seen some of these before. But this will show you my approach to drawing backgrounds, and then we'll come back and get into the actual lesson. So there you see, I like to do these very hyper-detailed illustrations of environments. Those of you who are very careful viewers, you may have noticed the second to last illustration was one that you hadn't seen before. That's because I just finished that one the other day. This was for Brody's Ghost, Book 3. In any case, I'm going to get into the lesson. There's going to be a lot of time-lapse here because actually a lot of this is just based on me drawing lines with a ruler, and that could get pretty boring to look at. But let's begin with the basics of one-point perspective. If you understand one-point perspective, you can build all kinds of environments based on that drawing system. And if you've had like art lessons in school, this may be familiar to you, but you got a line that's the horizon line right here. You can see that going across. I've put in one dot right here on the horizon line. That becomes the vanishing point. And I just went ahead and drew this figure here to begin with. I'm going to be drawing a guy in this sort of future dystopian, post-apocalyptic. You can see I get into drawing that kind of a world. And so I'm going to begin by trying to draw a road that he's walking down. Okay, so I'm starting here, and let me just go ahead and do this in time lapse, and then I'll come back and explain what I just did. Alright, so you can see I put some diagonal lines in here, all of them leaning back towards this one vanishing point. This becomes the road. You might see this as a partition in the middle, two different lanes or something like that. And what I'm going to do now is begin to build a sort of slope, embankment kind of thing on either side going up diagonally. And for me, that just involves two more lines, basically, for the upper edges. So let's do that, and I'll come right back. Okay, now it's kind of hard to see because it looks like a whole bunch of diagonal lines. So what I want to do now is get some lines that delineate the shape of the embankment so it becomes a little clearer what I'm doing. So again, we'll do that in time lapse and come back to explain what I did. Okay, so you can start to get a sense of what the shape of this structure is. I'm going to go ahead and just put a few little extra lines in here so you can start to feel it's maybe a little like in the first Star Wars movie, that trench, that big Death Star trench with all the rock ships shooting down it. This guy is walking all by himself down this desolate section of highway. Now, what I want to do that's going to be a little more challenging is to add a sort of big overpass up here that will be supported by pillars that come down and join this side, this embankment over here. Basically that's going to be as far as I go with adding structure to this. I wanted to keep this simple so it doesn't become overwhelming. You saw some of my illustrations become kind of crazy with the details. But so we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to go ahead and draw some lines here for this overpass. So we've got all those lines in place, and I don't know if you can really see what this is meant to be, but this is supposed to be sort of the bottom surface of this big, long overpass that's heading down. Again, all of this just going straight down toward that vanishing point. I'm going to alter things down here a little later on, but to begin with, I want to show you how do I get some pillars in here that will support that overpass, that follow the rules of perspective. Okay, so number one, what I want to do is figure out where is the base of the first pillar on this diagonal embankment right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'll just do this one bit here live or real time instead of time lapsing it. But I'm going to make a nice little line there, and then maybe a second one here. And that is going to show me a subsection here that the pillar can be built on, okay? So if I want to go look at the top part of that line, bottom part of that line there, I can start to add sort of vertical, or not, yeah, vertical lines. I don't even know. Vertical, I think it's vertical. What does vertical mean? These vertical lines that will show the pillar that supports that overpass. Now, it connects, hopefully, to these upper lines here that form the sort of center of the overpass bridge. And you can see here, you know, if we start to erase this, this is going to become a solid structure. And each one of the pillars, as I draw them receding into the distance, they all need to connect to this embankment in the same place. That's why you have a line here and a line down here, okay? So if I do a second line like this, and sort of darken that in here and darken that in here, this becomes a solid kind of concrete pillar that sort of looks believable in terms of the perspective because of these lines heading down towards that vanishing point. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop in a little bit randomly some extra horizontal lines here that will just sort of add to the sense of that being a solid surface. And later on, toward the end of the video, you're going to see me really go to town with details and so forth. But hopefully you can see that at the beginning of the process is this fairly straightforward basic approach of building everything on a simple one-point perspective structure. So I'm going to go ahead and, in time-lapse, draw a few more pillars that, again, are all set into that same structure so that they recede into the distance. All right, so we're starting to get the basic structures in place here, and you know, if all of this seems kind of overwhelming to you, if you're a beginner, then I would say, you know, try doing this without doing the overpass part of the illustration. Try just doing that bottom road part, and then you can kind of start to get your bearings and get down the basic concept of one-point perspective before you start trying to do more challenging things. You know, in general, trying to draw environments is not something that the beginning artist is just going to leap into and do perfectly the first time. It's something that is the result of many years of work on all the various, you know, drawing skills that all come together in doing a super detailed, believable, three-dimensional looking environment. So don't beat yourself up if you find, hey man, I can't draw this on my first try. Believe me, when I was younger, I couldn't draw this either. So what I want to do to make this a little more interesting, instead of having this all go straight down to that vanishing point, as the overpass comes down into the distance, I want it to sort of curve off to one side. At this point, you know, if this thing is curving off, then we are starting to ignore that that point, the one point, you know, in the distance. We can just have this head off in some other direction that frankly I haven't really thought about too much. It just maybe it's perpendicular, you know, or parallel. Maybe, is that right? Parallel, perpendicular. I never know the words for anything. Perpendicular, man. Parallel. They both start with the letter P. Anyway, so this is curving off and going across the surface of this desolate wasteland planet. And as I go in to continue drawing support pillars, I'll tell you the truth, I'm not worrying too much about, well, you know, is this the right distance between the pillars that I've set up here? Am I drawing them too close together? You know, in my style, I cut myself some slack, and I don't sit there worrying about the structural stuff too much. It is, after all, with Brody's Ghost anyway, a little bit of a fantasy comic. So in that sense, the main reason I'm doing that is I think it just starts to look a little dead when every single line is heading off towards the vanishing point. We rarely see that in real life, and so that's why I'm adding just a little curve in the highway there, and I think it'll eventually add some life to the scene. Now I'm going to take what we've got here and just firm up these lines and start to add a little more detail. Again, all in time-lapse. And then we'll come back and talk about maybe some of the very last things that I can do to finish off this drawing. Okay, so I moved through quite a lot of stuff there, and I know some people may find that kind of frustrating, but I don't know if we can view this really as a line-by-line, you know, follow along with me kind of video. Hopefully you can regard this as sort of me giving you general principles that you can apply to a drawing of your own, and get a sense maybe of the order in which you do things, right? I build the structure first, in its basic lines, and then after that I go on and start doing these little tiny details. If you try to do the details first, you don't know where to put them, right? I mean, so it just makes sense to build the structure first. Although I'm always hesitant to say, you know, this is the way, or you should always do this. I just don't believe that with art. There's no always, right? Everyone finds their own techniques that work. So one thing I want to just tell you before I close this video is how we can add a little more of a feeling of depth to this scene by drawing in the very far distance some sort of bombed out buildings. You know, like I said, this is supposed to be a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian future. The last man on Earth walking the road alone. How do you like my wind effects there? Maybe I better not try to go into the sound effect industry. Don't quit your day job, Krilly. Just adding a few faint little buildings like this in the background, I think can finish off an illustration like this. You know, on purpose, I chose a drawing that would involve mainly straight lines. In the future, I may do more videos in which we take it to even more challenging places, and to me that means adding things like trees, cars. Once you start adding other objects like that, the whole thing becomes even harder. So if you were trying to follow this and you're like, oh boy, man, this looks too difficult to me, you may be like, please don't do another one of these videos. Because from here, it actually only gets harder. And that's basically the price you pay when you decide to start drawing realistic backgrounds. There is no easy way out. It requires a knowledge of perspective. It requires a lot of patience. And finally, what I'm going to do to finish this off, again, in time-lapse, I'm going to try to add some color to it with watercolor and just give you an idea of what I would consider a finished version of this illustration. Okay, well, there you have it. You saw I really moved through an awful lot of stuff here. I added some smoke in the background to add to that apocalyptic feeling. Why did they do it? Why did they destroy the entire Earth? Probably time. When I start getting crazy like that, that means it's time to end the video. But I do hope that you enjoyed this one. I know it's kind of overwhelming, all the different stuff that I covered here, but you get the basic idea. There needs to be some sort of a structure underneath it all that's based on perspective, and then you can go for all the details and the colors and all that other stuff toward the end. Let me know what you thought of this video, if you found it useful, or if you thought it was too hard, or whatever. Just give me your feedback, and that will inform my decisions as I decide whether or not to continue doing more videos like this in the future. But before I go, I always like to thank people for picking up my graphic novel series, Mickey Falls. Greatly appreciate that. Brody's Ghost as well, as you saw at the beginning of the video. Both of those are out there. In fact, Brody's Ghost is out in ebook form, so if you can't find it at a bookstore, that is another option for you. But let me go ahead and lay the brush down. I want to thank you all for watching this video, for subscribing. I greatly appreciate your support. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be back with another one real soon.